Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. Patients of a Whitehorse psychiatrist say lives are at risk if Dr. Leo Elwell closes his practice. Elwell is in the midst of a dispute with Yukon government over pay. As Chris Windier reports, patients aren't happy about how the government is handling the situation.
Elwell has been in practice for more than a decade. During that time, he's developed a reputation as a caring practitioner who's adept at helping people with serious mental health and addictions issues. In November, Elwell told patients his clinic will have to close if the government doesn't change the way he's paid. Serena Oswald is one of those patients. She says Elwell is good at his job and the Yukon government should give him what he's asking for.
We know the problems up here. There's been tons of reviews done with health and social services. We know the crisis. So again, it needs to be focused on let's keep Dr. Elwell up here and keep the clients safe, because without him, there's going to be a potential disaster.
In a statement, Health Minister Tracy Ann McPhee says the government is now reviewing the way it provides psychiatric services. And she says, quote, "I understand and I'm concerned for the patients who are impacted by these ongoing discussions, who may be experiencing added stress and trauma. I want to say to them, we hear you, and we are working with Dr. Elwell to find a solution." McPhee has come under fire for her handling of this file. In the Assembly last month, she suggested Elwell violated his professional oath by asking patients to lobby on his behalf. But his patients say that's nonsense, and they want the government to back down. Chris Windier, CBC News, Whitehorse.
A Yellowknife man has been found guilty of possessing child pornography. His lawyer argued the images found their way onto his computer accidentally, but the judge wasn't buying it. The CBC's Jenna Delavich reports.
Russ Jones stood in the Supreme Court of the Northwest Territories this morning with no emotion on his face, as Justice Shannon Smallwood found Jones guilty of possessing child pornography. Jones was charged in 2020 after a lengthy investigation revealed more than 4,000 images on several devices. During the three-day trial in September, defense lawyer Jay Brand suggested Jones was in innocent possession after accidentally stumbling across the images on a search engine in 2016. The judge said while the initial incident could have been accidental, innocent possession does not align with the fact Jones continued to search the images and save child pornography to his computer for several years. The sentencing hearing for the Yellowknife man will take place in the new year. Jenna Delavich, CBC News, Yellowknife.
As food costs rise across the country, demand is at an all-time high for food banks in Iqaluit. When the Arctic Food Bank opened in 2018, it served around 40 people every other Saturday. Now, it's serving between 80 and 120 families. The bank is run by the Islamic Society of Nunavut. It expects the need will keep increasing.
So demand definitely will rise, and we will, of course, request for more food for our next year. So that's why in our next distribution for the next year, we should be having enough food according to this demand, or maybe we can foresee if there is any more demand, so we should be above and beyond that.
Vani says the Arctic Food Bank works closely with the other food banks like the Kayaktorvik Community Food Center. They'll often share resources to keep up with demand. The Israeli military is continuing its bombardment of the Gaza Strip, looking to flush out Hamas militants. But with the war also claiming innocent lives, the U.S. has sent its top envoy to push Israel to do more to protect civilians. Chris O'Neill Yates has the latest.
This video released by the Israeli Defense Force appears to show that these are Hamas fighters, some holding their green Palestinian ID cards. This pile, their weapons surrendered outside a hospital in northern Gaza. Israel's bombardment of the entire Gaza Strip has continued relentlessly. This freelance video was shot for CBC News Today in Rafah. The IDF announced it would suspend fighting in the Al Salam neighborhood so displaced Gazans could get much needed food and water. Fighting resumed after 4 hours. In the daily race against time, hope runs out of finding survivors in the rubble. Overnight in Jabalia, northeast of Gaza City, the fighting carried on through the night until morning, says this man, targeting an entire residential block. Amidst the destruction, disease and hunger are taking hold, according to the head of the UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency, UNRWA. Many Gazans have been without food for up to 3 days. Enough humanitarian aid isn't getting in, and people are becoming more desperate.
We are teetering on the edge of a possible implosion. We might reach our limit. Why? Because there is more and more a breakdown of a civil order.
U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is in Israel for talks, as a rift seems to be developing between the two countries. President Joe Biden has said Israel is losing support over indiscriminate bombing. The Israeli defense minister said it will take time to eliminate Hamas.
It will take and require a long period of time. It will last more than several months, but we will win and we will destroy them.
With any hope of a ceasefire out of reach, the Hamas-run health ministry says more than 179 people have been killed over the past day, putting the number of dead since the fighting began at nearly 19,000. Chris O'Neill-Yates, CBC News, St. John's.
The war between Israel and Hamas is having ripple effects around the world and on the high seas. Iranian-backed militants in Yemen have ramped up their attacks on cargo ships passing throughout the Red Sea, a development that's causing concern in the shipping industry and elsewhere. Chris Brown has that story.
Israel's foes are applying pressure wherever they can, and civilian shipping in the Red Sea has become more collateral damage to the war in Gaza. Yemen's Houthi militias captured the Galaxy leader and detained its crew in November, and the attacks have escalated since. This week, a Norwegian oil tanker was hit by anti-ship missiles and caught fire. Other commercial ships were shot at, but were undamaged. Houthi military leaders claim they're acting in solidarity with Palestinians, and that all of the targets have some connection to Israel, but that's far from clear.
The actions that we've seen from these Houthi forces are destabilizing, they're dangerous, and clearly a flagrant violation of international law.
U.S., French, and other naval vessels have shot down many of the drones and missiles, but with the attacks increasing, the United States is calling for a broad coalition to protect shipping.
We have every reason to believe that these attacks, while they were launched by the Houthis in Yemen, were fully enabled by Iran.
Iran also exerts control over Hezbollah militias to Israel's north in Lebanon. This former Yemeni ambassador to Canada says if Iran decides to expand the conflict, the bigger threat comes from Hezbollah, not the Houthis.
If the Iranians decide that a war should erupt, should start in that region, it's Hezbollah who can do it, not the Houthis. The Houthis can disrupt, as I said, the maritime traffic, but that's the maximum they can do.
Shipping representatives stress the industry is very resilient. It has dealt with issues such as piracy around the Red Sea before, and some shipping companies are opting to sail around Africa instead, hoping that these attacks, while serious, can be contained. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Communities across the country continue to grapple with the growing opioid crisis. Some First Nations here in the north have even declared a state of emergency in recent years. Now, a First Nation in Eastern Ontario is doing the same. Nicole Williams reports.
Deep in the Ottawa Valley, members of the Algonquins of Pikwakanagan First Nation are sounding the alarm. Officials recently declared a state of emergency. Drug overdoses are ravaging the community.
We're losing too many of our people to death, and the people who end up in having an overdose are that much closer to not surviving.
Drug-related deaths have surged across the country since the pandemic, and the First Nation is no exception. Before 2020, it saw an average of 5 drug-related deaths a year. In the first 6 months of 2023, there were 12, a staggering loss in a community of just 500 people. Michael Dustin Commando is a member of the First Nation and works there. He knows the impact of this crisis firsthand.
I do have family that has drug addictions, and I see no change of them getting better.
So there's 5 steps to respond to the opioid overdose.
The small team at the local health center says they see roughly 3 overdoses a week, and with not enough resources, they're being pushed to the brink.
I think we're stuck with, trying to get services out to people, trying to get out safe supplies, trying to educate.
Declaring a state of emergency gives the First Nation access to government funding for addictions treatment and programming, partnerships with provincial and federal agencies to help form an action plan, and more police officers stationed in the community to help stem the flow and sale of drugs in and around the First Nation.
Pikwakanagan is not isolated. We don't have closed borders. We're quite open.
The chief of Pikwakanagan says this state of emergency will remain in place as long as is necessary until council feels like the situation is under control and community members are safe. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Pikwakanagan First Nation, Ontario.
A House of Commons committee has recommended House Speaker Greg Fergus be punished but not fired. Opposition parties, though, want him to resign. The calls come after a video surfaced of him paying tribute to a Liberal colleague. As Marina von Stackelberg reports, this comes amid fresh allegations of current and past speakers breaking the rules of being nonpartisan.
Greg Fergus started in his speaker seat this morning but was promptly replaced, so a report could be released of whether he should lose his job. A House of Commons committee has recommended Fergus apologize and pay a fine, but not step down.
It's such a great opportunity to speak about my longtime friend, John Fraser.
This is the video that spurred calls for him to leave. Fergus, in his speaker's office, in his speaker's attire, paying tribute to the outgoing leader of the Ontario Liberal Party. In Canada, the Speaker is supposed to be impartial and act as a referee in the House of Commons. Now, the Conservatives say they have proof this isn't the only time Fergus broke the rules.
There is evidence of another partisan activity that the Speaker was engaged with.
This photo on Instagram shows Fergus a month ago at a cocktail fundraiser for a Liberal member of Quebec's legislature.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is not even the Speaker's riding. This is a neighboring riding. It's billed as a cocktail with activists or volunteers.
Fergus's office responded in a statement, writing, "The Speaker's attendance at this event precedes the introduction of a rigorous new protocol. Mr. Fergus was simply in attendance at this free event, which is in his riding."
I've gotten to know Arpan over the past few years.
This all comes after CBC News reported that Conservative House Leader Andrew Scheer broke the rules. He was fined $500 for using Parliament resources to film a video endorsing a Conservative by-election candidate.
I note that Andrew Scheer did the same kind of partisan fundraising after his election as Speaker.
The NDP point to Scheer attending Conservative fundraising events back when he was the Speaker under the previous Conservative government.
The message has to be all speakers from now on, regardless of the party, cannot act in this way, either partisan, wearing their robes, or participating in a partisan fundraiser.
While the NDP and the Liberals want Greg Fergus to keep his job, the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois still want him out. This comes as the House of Commons is set to break at the end of this week, with MPs heading home to their ridings for the next 6 weeks. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
How can any of this be fair?
Now you might think, hey, we just need more doctors, but that's not really it.
A Russian scheme here
shows you where it starts, where it ends.
Were you really willing to risk that job?
Yes.
At Thunder Bay's favorite festival, Wake the Giant.
Ta-da! There it is.
That same woman from the SEC keeps calling. Can I give her your number?
No.
Michael Lazaridis, want to come and answer some questions?
Why is the SEC looking at us? I'm sure it's nothing. Yeah.
I'm just wondering how you convinced all these engineers from around the world to come all the way to Canada. Do you know what the sentence is for multi-million-dollar stock fraud?
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes your world.
All right.
Reporting from the scene onto your screens.
It goes on like this, and on and on and on and on.
It's news you can trust, delivered when you want, where you want. On Canada's News app. Download the free CBC News app.
It doesn't matter how full of people your house is as long as it's full of love. Now, today is not about the future. It's not about the past. It's about this moment.
You can't go halfway with Swan Lake.
There's a lot of stress. I love ballet, and sometimes it feels like it doesn't love me back.
The stakes become very high.
We're just trying to survive right now.
Some people rise and some people don't.
The Great Canadian Baking Show is back.
And the winner is...
Alan, no, it's too soon for that.
How about now?
Give me that.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Arctic sports athletes have arrived in Inuvik. They're competing for spots on the NWT Arctic Winter Games team. The trial started this morning, and Des Loreen was there.
Okay, good luck, everybody. Have fun. Remember, shake hands after you're done.
33 athletes from 4 communities are in Inuvik, all of them wanting to make it on Team NWT for Arctic sports. Feats of strength and endurance are showcased this week, with former athletes coaching, officiating, and giving that little extra push.
Just encourage them, see them, give them a pat on the back, congratulate them. It's a great thing to see all these young guys joining, especially this older guys, they're passing down what they know. It's great.
Everything is marked on point. Making the team might be the ultimate goal for some, but these games are all about helping each other out, keeping the cultures of the North strong while being active.
What interested me is how I'm still learning from the people that's more experienced in the games, like Craig Grubin, Underwood Day, a couple others. All the athletes out there have fun. It's not about competition, just have fun.
The athletes will be competing until Saturday afternoon. Organizers say the team will be announced shortly after the trials have finished. Des Loreen, CBC News, Inuvik.
Some kids in Watson Lake, Yukon are polishing their sweet ninja moves, tumbling, flipping, and flying through the air. The free drop-in program is going strong, building confidence and self-esteem. Cheryl Kawaja brings us the story.
Ben Lewis shows up early to set up the gear. 3 years ago, he and his wife, both doctors, settled in Watson Lake. Soon after, he put a call out for Tumbling Ninjas, and it's been full on since then.
There's definitely some pride in just watching them have fun and, be productive and positive and work together and kind of grow over the 3 years that I've been with them.
The entire family comes along, even Badger and Ginger.
There's a lot of fear of animals in Watson Lake, fear of dogs, and so I think just exposing the kids to some nice, friendly dogs is important, and they get a good sense of a healthy dog-human relationship. And, yeah.
1, 2, 3, run. Dogs, kids, baby. Flipping, bouncing, everything goes.
I think we're very lucky to have them, to have programs and someone to think about the little people. Yes?
Hi. Tori and her mom, Melissa Magan, have been coming here since the beginning.
It does wonders for her. She loves coming here. They learn a lot. Friendship, consideration, respect. All the important things they're picking up from here, and it's great.
I'm working on
backflips and handstands.
Caitlin here, for instance, was always scared to sort of do anything backwards, and so after several kind of weeks of trying these skills and progressions, she was finally able to do these back roll, backflip type things off these blocks, and it was just so happy, and that was it. That's why we do it. Just she overcame this fear that had been blocking her for a long time, and she was very proud of herself, and that's it. Builds confidence and helps people's self-esteem, and yeah, we need that here in Watson.
And anyone can join anytime.
I mean, sometimes it's a lot of work. There's a lot of behavioral stuff sometimes, but at the end of the day, you feel really satisfied. At the end of a night, and if the kids are smiling and happy and contributed to the community a little bit, for sure.
Ben Lewis hopes these drop-ins continue to be a place where little ninjas can find their place and grow skills, community, and confidence. Cheryl Kawaja, CBC News, Watson Lake, Yukon.
Some hamlets in Nunavut are canceling their annual Christmas events. Widespread illness is to blame. In Sunny Ryak, the community hall is closed until the new year, and everyone is required to wear a mask in public. In Igloolik, the hamlet has reached out to residents about canceling or postponing their Christmas games, and in Coral Harbour, the hamlet has also closed down most public venues this holiday season. Nunavut's Department of Health says there are no current outbreaks, but there is widespread flu and illness throughout the territory, which is anticipated for this time of year. The traditional balsam fir is getting a boost from technology. The so-called smart Christmas trees that are being developed will have consistently good shape, color, and aroma, and they will also be better adapted to climate change. Nancy Russell takes a closer look.
It is meticulous work creating a smart Christmas tree. The research started at Dalhousie University's Truro campus, then came here to Phytocultures, a biotech company on PEI, to bring it from the lab to commercial production. It hasn't been easy.
The biggest challenge is getting each of these genetic lines to work the same and to work predictably. So my biggest challenge is getting them all on the right schedule and figuring out how they tick.
Robin Kelly says they are taking the best of the balsams and trying to grow identical copies. Smart also because they look and smell good, and the needles stay on longer, making them easier for Nova Scotia tree growers to ship across North America. Some of the first smart Christmas trees have been growing here on Nova Scotia's South Shore.
Some are doing great, some are doing less than great, just average, but we're trying to weed out the worst and pick out the best. It's science. There's always a junkyard in the science world, right?
Here at Phytocultures, the company has also started its own balsam fir project, looking for trees that will be better suited for any changes in growing conditions caused by climate change. But all of the trees are going to take time.
They'll go out to market in 2026, not as a marketable tree, but as a transplant for the Christmas tree producers. And following that, it could be 6 to 8 or 10 years or 12 years even before those trees make it to market. You could use the old tree adage, what's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago.
Members of the Christmas Tree Council of Nova Scotia will get first dibs on the smart trees, but Phytocultures is planning to produce 300,000 seedlings this season, so they say more should be available for other growers very soon. The price tag for the project so far is about $8 million.
Little impatient, but very optimistic.
When we see that we're on the right track, it's a great feeling.
A joint PEI Nova Scotia effort that could someday be the center of holiday celebrations across North America. Nancy Russell, CBC News, Clyde River.
Okay.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
We fought our way through Italy and then headed for Amsterdam, sweeping for Germans along the way. Our worst fear was to catch a bullet in these last hours of the war.
I was 15 when the Nazis invaded the Netherlands. More than 100,000 Dutch Jews never came home. Our men were put into forced labor. By 1945, we were starving. The food drops gave us hope. And then the Canadians came.
Before Amsterdam, I couldn't have explained why we were there, all those years away from home. But the Dutch showed us why it mattered.
Papa wanted me to bring some soldiers home to thank them personally. And that's when I first saw Wilf. And I invited him over that afternoon.
Marguerite Blaise married Lieutenant Wilf Gildersleeve. They moved to Vancouver, where they raised 8 children. Today, the Dutch still remember the Canadians who liberated them.
Her particular skill set can be helpful to us.
She's a con artist.
Instead of using your talents for crime, you'll be playing on our team.
I'm a cop.
You're not a cop. You have a badge?
Not yet.
A gun?
Soon.
Not ever.
I need to get off that boat and back to being a full-time detective. And you need to stay out of prison. The best way we do that is to keep our heads down and do as we're told.
90,000.
90,000.
The department will cover it, right?
No, they won't.
Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
What's so? The holly makes it look Christmassy.
I'm making some magic happen.
Moment of truth.
It's working.
Music. That's what always gives me a Christmas tingle.
This is your future.
I'm in love.
I challenge you! Everything ends in death.
Je m'appelle Brigitte. Je suis pas obéissante. Je suis piégée.
I was a grade 9.
Mr. Critch, you need glasses. Glasses? No. I just think the chalk is just a little soft.
One of these days, we're gonna have to grow up. But today is not that day.
I don't want us to get older either.
Son of a Critch. Watch free on CBC.
The Great Canadian Baking Show is back.
It's time to get whisked away into a magical 10.
Whisked away. I see what you did there. It has begun.
Alan, please don't start with a
Donut.
pun competition.
I got my eyes on the pies.
We got a snake on the plane. What?
Prepare for emergency landing.
Hang on, guys.
Alex likely safe. Maybe you just haven't been taking the right risks. You might find you like dancing with danger.
Our customers could shop at any big box store, but they choose to shop at One More Time. Why?
Because our stuff is used and cheap.
We do accept baseball bats, but what is this?
It's about to get weird in here, isn't it?
Yes.
We are calling it iPhone.
Why would anybody want a phone without a keyboard?